Ahoy, fellow party animals.
And welcome aboard the Joy of Trek, our blown-out podcast exploring the white dwarfs and isolinear ships of Star Trek, all of it. I'm Kaki.
I'm Kay.
And blaming the adults is your chief engineer, Greg.
Aww.
Together, we're on a mission through the polywater of Star Trek to find the freezer burn in every shower and the excellence in every episode.
Even the submissive captains.
Because every episode must be someone's favorite, and it might as well be us.
So lubricate your android and join us as we walk the walk of shame into the Joy of Trek. Did you guess which episode we're doing?
Yes, I did. Well, actually,
well done, Kay.
I cheated and I looked it up. Actually, you're the one who got it right last time.
Oh, yes, that's right. Because we're doing The Naked Now, the second episode proper of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah. That's a deep dive.
That was pretty bonkers, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It's everybody is acting oddly, basically.
It's a callback to an original series episode called The Naked Time, which similar had the same thing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
going on.
it's literally referenced in the episode because that's where the Cure, they found the lead into the Cure.
Yeah, but it doesn't actually help them.
Which leads me to actually the two biggest points of criticism that I found on the web on this episode.
Oh, that's early.
I mean, might as well since we've just mentioned them. The fact that at first, since this was only the second proper episode, like episode 3, but like the first one's a two-parter, so that doesn't really count. People expressed concern that, oh gosh, they're just going to be rehashing old original series episodes things.
Yeah.
And also, why start with an episode so early on, like where everybody is acting out of character? It's like we've only seen them in one episode, how they're supposed to act. And
absolutely,
those seem to be the two biggest points of criticism that I've come across on the internets.
Oh, and those are totally valid. But as usual, shields up. So Gene Roddenberry, as part of his original ideas for Star Trek The Next Generation, one of the things that he thought about that might be successful and make for good television is essentially to redo original series episodes but with much higher budgets and a modern sexual people. And it turned out to not be a great idea, and so that was abandoned and not repeated. I also saw that a lot of the cast really didn't enjoy this episode.
Okay.
But Jonathan Frakes came back from that early on in his career. He was very, very dismissive of this episode. He thought it was incredibly stupid and everybody acting against character. But he's sort of come back from that because it's a really wild creative swing. And Gene Roddenberry, for better or worse, his idea was we want to establish right at the start what everyone wants.
Right.
And so we're going to strip away all of their sort of projected persona and we're going to show what's underneath.
That's a very good point, actually, yeah.
And I thought that was a fascinating perspective that made me really enjoy this episode.
Right, it's kind of like a cheat in doing a lot of character development.
Yeah, exactly.
Character development. So now we know what everybody really wants, and now we can see how they're professional about it and what's going on. Very good point.
What they're repressing and denying.
Yes.
That was really interesting. Now I'm really interested in who recommended this episode.
All right, go on then. Oh,
you can do it sometimes, too. Sometimes I like to be surprised.
Okay, so The Next Now, Star Trek Next Generation, was recommended by Traci Meek-Reid.
When I was 7, one night the TV just stopped. We all went, and went on to do other things. And then 5 years later, the VCR landed in our home. TV was restored, and I discovered this bright technicolor world that came on after the Saturday morning cartoons. Star Trek. I was hooked. 2 years later, Star Trek The Next Generation launched. I watched the premiere, and after the trailer for the next episode played, I ran through the house excitedly shouting, "They're doing the naked time! They're doing the naked time!" With no further ado, I nominate TNG's The Naked Now. It acknowledges its roots. It ruthlessly exposes Captain Picard and Dr. Crusher, and Riker, Troi, Data, and Yar, as the star-crust lovers / relentless horndogs that they are, and shows that space is for everyone, even 14-year-old kids like Wesley Crusher. And me. Because as much as I love the dystopian depression pill delivered by Blade Runner, 14-year-old me needed hope for a future. The Naked Now proved that Star Trek and its themes are eternal and are not bound by one cast, one era, or one man's vision. I joyfully welcome each new iteration of Star Trek and still run through the house screaming with glee when they drop a reference to an old show. This universe is big enough for everybody.
Who says, your accents are delightful for your life. Well, thank you very much. And she said, when I was 7, one night the TV just stopped. We all went and went off to do other things, and then 5 years later, the VCR landed in our home. TV was restored, and I discovered this bright technicolor word that came on after the Saturday morning cartoons. Star Trek. I was hooked.
Amazing!
2 years later, Star Trek The Next Generation launched. I watched the premiere, and after the trailer for the next episode played, I ran through the house excitedly shouting, "They're doing the naked time! They're doing the naked time!" with no further ado. I nominate the TNG's The Naked Now. It acknowledges its roots. It ruthlessly exposes Captain Picard and Dr. Crusher and Riker, Troi, Data, and Yar as the star-crossed lovers, relentless horndogs that they are. And that show, Spaced, is for everyone. Even 14-year-old kids like Wesley Crusher. And me. Because as much as I love the dystopian depression pill delivered by Blade Runner, 14-year-old me needed hope for a future.
Damn right.
The Naked Now proved that Star Trek and its themes are eternal and not bound by one cast, one era, one man's vision. And I joyfully welcome each new iteration of Star Trek and still run through the house screaming with glee when they drop a reference to an old show. This universe is big enough for everyone.
Oh, hell yeah. Traci, thank you so much. Wow, this really brings like a tear to my heart and a glint to my ear because it's just fantastic.
Bright-tailed and bushy-eyed, huh?
This screed of the joy of Star Trek, and yes, running through the house when you see something weird. Oh gosh, we're recording this just after I've seen some reactions to a new teaser for Strange New Worlds season 3. And I know some people who care a lot about Spock and are not really happy about some of the things that we've seen. And they have some good points, right? There's potential for cultural insensitivity, but there's also just a tremendous amount of fun to be had. And yeah, if you can love this episode, you can love anything.
Oh.
And then you live in a richer world. Traci, thank you so much for recommending this episode. Like, being so excited about this being a rehash, how wonderful is that?
Yes. That's like actually the point that, yeah, they're really redoing, well, they're not really redoing it. They're doing a very serious, heavy nod to it.
It's basically the same episode. I mean, the resolution is basically the same. Oh, it didn't work because we're only 37 minutes into the episode.
They're doing a house, pulling a Dr. House.
Now
yes.
it works.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Oh, God. Okay, so we have been kissed by a witch who cursed us with technical difficulties.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to do things a little bit unconventional. Now, I've sent you, instead of the GIFs which failed, the PDF, and I'm going to be running my soundboard, some of which is much improved, but it includes 2 new, I'm going to call them features.
Okay.
One of them is that I only have about 50% of the screenshots, and the rest of them have the text, but it's very difficult for me to read.
Oh, yes.
So there's going to come a time, and listeners at home, see if you can guess when that is, when I kind of lose the fucking plot, and I have to sort of struggle to keep up with where we are. And the other one is that sometimes, like, these sound bites are a lot cleaner, because I tried to solve for the 2 problems that we had last time, which is that when I tapped one of these sound bites, it didn't always play immediately. You know, the time codes were off because I was using the time codes from subtitles, and subtitles and closed captions. They have to be shown for a certain amount of time to be readable, which means they sometimes start earlier than the audio.
Yes.
So I've corrected for that.
So you tried to solve for Y, but you solved for X?
Well, the X was also like sometimes cutting into and out of music.
Are you going to let that one slide?
Oh my God, no, you're right. I tried to solve for Y, but I'm the X. Oh, very good. Subspace reference Rhapsody, bro.
Rest assured, Kay, I was not going to leave you hanging out with that because I heard that and I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So if Cocky didn't say anything, I was going to have your back. Don't you worry.
And so I've tried to eliminate the background music, and there's some clever ways to do that, but they sort of made the audio too short, and then this didn't align, so I found a less clever way to do that. The consequence is sometimes they sound like machines.
Oh, yes. Because it all sounds like phone lines?
It's even a little bit worse than that sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be okay, and sometimes it's going to be weird. So you're going to hear a marked difference between the clips that I use and the clips that our beloved Greg, Chief, does.
Yes, so there were times when the distortion was too much, and I had to make the decision to just fix it so it sounded better for you, so I'm keeping a lot of the weird sounds because it's kind of funny just to hear, like, Picard sounding odd like he does here, but for the most part, I chose legibility, so I want to make sure that you, the listener, can hear it clearly as you should.
Speaking of the Chief, what happens in this episode?
Oh, Oh, great. So, the crew of the Enterprise are infected by
This is going
drunken.
so great.
Oh God, don't get me started on this. This is hard. I mean, I had the same thing when I was thinking about what my deleted scene is going to be.
How about this? How about you do it the way that you usually do, which is completely useless,
Right?
To new viewers, but then we'll have the chief say it properly after that. Is that going to be? No, I want to be supportive. All
right. So the crew of the Enterprise gets to show their true selves after they get an inhibition-lowering alien infestation.
Yeah. Okay.
There we
go. Incredibly accurate. Chief, do you want to read the thing that's on Wikipedia or IMDb or wherever that actually tells people what happened?
The crew of the Enterprise is subjected to an exotic illness that drives them to unusual manic behavior akin to a type of alcoholic intoxication.
Thank you. It's nice to hear from the chief this early in the episode.
It is. So,
I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
That's fine.
I want to be very supportive.
You always do that, so I should be used to it by now.
I wonder what's going to happen with me as my inhibitions are lowered, because I'm joined today by Captain Picard. And because we were dealing with some technical difficulties, Captain Picard has been with me for a little while.
A little longer than normal.
And so I'm sort of starting where we normally wind up by the end.
Do we have a little lead-in?
Captain's log, stardate 41209.2. We are running at warp 7 to rendezvous with the science vessel SS Tsiolkovsky, which has been routinely monitoring the collapse of a red supergiant star into a white dwarf. What has brought us here is a series of strange messages indicating something has gone wrong aboard the research vessel.
Okay, now hang in there, because it's going to get real bad.
SS Tsiolkovsky, repeat your message.
Well, hello, Enterprise. Welcome. I hope you have a lot of pretty boys on board, because I'm willing and waiting.
I'm so sorry.
In fact, we're going
Well, I
to
mean,
have
it kind
a
of
blowout
sounds in
here.
character, like a bad sex phone line operator.
It kind of does.
So, the Tsiolkovsky is in party mode. Excellent.
Yeah, we're going to have a real blowout here.
And just I mean, this thing, I don't know what it's called, but apparently it does undetectable things which produces alcohol-like effects in.
They call it polywater.
Right, that's the one.
Which I actually love as a term, because what the f does it mean? I don't know.
Polywater. Also, it affects
It's
Data, who doesn't have biological components.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Hey, we've had silicon-based viruses that can affect carbon-based life forms. And so, okay, I'm going to be hugely on the side of this episode because nobody fucking knew what they were doing.
Obviously. Now,
At this point.
there's a lot of little details that can be nitpicked at in this episode, which make absolutely no sense if you think about it.
That's not even what I mean.
Oh, okay.
They didn't know what show they were making.
Oh, right.
They didn't know if they were making more of the original series, which had some wild swings and a tenuous grasp of science. It was all heavily controlled by Gene Roddenberry, but he was a capricious god.
Yes.
Who, oh yes, we should do some credits. This came out in October 5th, 1987, written by John D.F. Black and D.C. Fontana. Dorothy Fontana, I should say. She went by D.C. because, women didn't get jobs otherwise back then. Directed by Paul Lynch, who loved it. But Dorothy Fontana actually had her name taken off this when the episode aired. Because at the time, the structure was staff writers write episodes and go through several rewrites, and then Gene Roddenberry does a rewrite. And staff writers can't do anything about it at that point.
Oh, okay.
And he usually adds, shorter skirts and sex scenes.
Yes. Well, there's no shortage of that in this episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because back since the Quester tapes, Gene Roddenberry has wanted an android-human sex scene, and he finally got one through the censors.
And he got it, right in there at the beginning.
Right in there.
I completely forgot that this was, so incredibly early on in.
Right. A lot of that sort of vibe of the first season, which is really weird rewatching, sort of unlocked for me when I saw some behind-the-scenes photos from a book. Ooh, Chief, can you remind me of the book that I'm thinking of without any of these clues?
Yes, so that would be Star Trek The Next Generation 365 by Paula M. Block and Terry J. Erdman.
Whoa! Amazing. Yeah, that's exactly it. Which shows two costume fittings.
Yeah.
So you had Gene Roddenberry, Rick Berman, a bunch of the producers sitting in a sort of lounge, and you have a dude and a chick, two actors who are wearing these costumes by William Ware ties. One of them sort of looks like the ones that we're used to, the red and black. And the other one looks like a funky flared pants, unibody, short-sleeved, like C-Lab 2020 kind of number.
Wow.
Because it was 1987, and that was just still a little bit cool.
Right. It's like the last remnants of disco clinging onto its...
Exactly. That could have been this show.
Breath, yeah.
Right, we could have had them on there with like short-sleeved versions of what you see on Galaxy Quest, you know, with a deep V down the middle. So these writers, they had no idea what the show was actually going to look like, or the humanist and scientific tone that it would eventually get.
There's a fantastic black and white photo of Patrick Stewart, who is wearing a toupee, which they were trying out as a look for him to see, like with blonde hair. But it was actually, I believe, Gene Roddenberry who went like, it's like bald captain is not. There's no problem with having a bald captain in the future, not because they found a cure for male pattern balding, but because nobody would care at that point.
Yep. That was a beautiful response. Like the journalist said, like, in the future, wouldn't they have solved that? And he said, no, in the future, they wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Now, also, if you read the Next Generation sort of writer's Bible, which was available to the writers, you could tell a lot where Gene Roddenberry was in his life. You know, as a man in his in his 50s at this time, writing down like Captain Picard, a balding man in his 50s. But in the future, that's considered the sexual prime of their life.
He is the sexiest man alive.
Yeah, exactly, because lives are longer and the experience is valued, and he has a red-headed MILF doctor.
And we still get babyface Riker.
Oh my God, that's the greatest sort of whiplash, isn't it?
Yes, it is. All right, so I think we're running quite long in our intro.
Yeah, but this is all stage setting, right? Because we're in like the first season of the Next Generation.
The story is very thin, so we're going to have to...
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, they beam onto the SS Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, because they heard, basically what they hear is the sound of the hatch blowing out. We get to like one of those little moments where Data gets to show off that how good he is, and this knowing look from... It's like Picard asks him, are you certain about that? And just Data just looks up at him, and Picard goes,
yes, of course you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're all brand new to each other. They've known each other for a week.
Yeah.
This whole crew. Which is also a fascinating dynamic. And seeing how especially Riker and Data treat each other. Mm-hmm. I kind of really love it.
And how almost uncertain of himself Picard still plays in this whole episode.
Oh, yeah.
He is nothing of the decisive man that he is much later in the series.
Yes.
He is very much still questioning him. I mean, maybe not himself, but yeah, he's not that determined and decisive.
We see a lot of moments where he sort of fails to find a solution for the frustrations that he's facing.
Yes.
And just kind of submits to them.
Like, he is not in control. That's what I have
even
actually
before he's
written down. Oh, yeah. And after.
So here's an example. While they're examining the Tchaikovsky, Riker observes...
They were all sucked out into space.
And Data says...
Correction, sir. That's blown out.
Yes, but later on he makes the mistake of like, oh, you download that to sickbay. No, you're uploading it to sickbay, Mr. Data. You as a computer should know
that. Yeah, we don't get that. What I mean is Riker completely accepts this because this person who's an android is one of his officers. And yeah, it's a kind of pedantic correction. But I think Riker is in this point already is like showing how much he respects other people's cultural point of view. Data thinks he's being helpful, so yeah, there's no point in being annoyed. You don't see any of that on his face.
So how much do you think they were doing, trying to play Data as the new Spock, basically?
100%. Yeah. That is absolutely the dynamic.
Yeah.
It just didn't have bones, and it didn't have the strongest relationship between Picard and Data yet.
Right.
There was a stronger relationship between Riker and Data because Riker's the one who finds him in the holodeck, and Data also was sort of figuring himself out. In this episode, he uses contractions, which later,
later on, he's supposed not to be able to do until he
still
modifies his actual linear chips. Yes,
but God, how fit and like trim and hot everyone is with those sweaty muscle suits under their uniforms.
Geordi finds what's the name called? What's the name again? That
a still life?
That village in Italy.
Oh, Pompeii or Herculaneum.
A Pompeii-esque scene, that's the word I was looking for. Because everybody, in the crew quarters. Crew quarters, which seem to be like everybody gathered in the same crew quarters. Maybe it's a much smaller ship, so maybe then again, there's not enough bunks. But everybody's in the beds anyway. Anyway, yes, everybody's dead.
There's 18, yeah, exactly.
Looks like someone has been playing with the environmental controls, sir. Just let all the heat bleed away into space.
Now you have to work for that on spaceships. But again, it's just one of those little points where they're
actually, this one is fine. Because if you have a mechanism to bleed heat into space, which you need on a spaceship that generates heat.
You could technically,
You probably want it to be able to bleed off more than just regular ambient heat in case sometimes, you have to overclock your ship. And so if you lead it at that mode, if you have one of those mechanisms.
And everybody's been screaming. But there seems to be...
And they're all naked and draped over each other. And I thought we were getting an awful lot of butt cleft, but it turns out to be two shoulders together.
Oh, no, yes. Corpse falls out of the freezer onto Geordi, which makes him become the first person to get infected. And we get the little virus transfer sound.
Yes, the little hits.
Yes, which they play every time someone gets, like, one of the people touch each other, and now we know that whatever it is that affects them is now being spread to another person.
Hey, it's 1987. We needed to handhold people. Although, we never get that sound when Picard becomes infected.
No.
So maybe he's not even infected when he's all being super weird.
He's like he sees this as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Maybe, he's French. He's just like so used to like all the alcohol. It's like everybody's like, wow, they're only used to synthahol. And Picard is just like, this is just like Friday morning, man.
We don't go to the credits, which are beautiful. And then halfway through, we realize just how fucking long they are after that. And then we skip them. But we got the beautiful bit.
Exactly.
Where, flying through the solar system where you see Jupiter being lit from the sun that's on the left. And then Saturn right across from it, which is being lit from the right from somewhere. I don't know.
Maybe they did a little loop around.
We are running at Warp 7 to rendezvous with the science vessel SS Tsiolkovsky, which has been routinely monitoring the collapse of a red supergiant star into a white dwarf. What has brought us here is a series of strange messages indicating something has gone wrong aboard the research vessel.
And Picard is concerned with getting a diagnosis for what happened to Tsiolkovsky, because all 18 of the crew are dead, which is definitely worthy of investigation.
18? I thought it was like 80. Oh well, doesn't matter.
Oh yes, you're right. There
were 80 people on that ship, number one.
The robot version of this voice doesn't sound very, very emotional, does it? There are moments where, because this technology it synthesizes speech when it doesn't find enough signal.
Right.
And it has a bias toward North American accents, which on Picard it gets a little bit weird.
It gets a bit odd, yes. So they set the transporter to maximum decontamination and then a full examination with everybody on board. Riker shows a blatant disregard of HIPAA regulations because as Crusher is scanning Geordi, you can see Riker just leaning over his shoulder, looking at the tricorder, looking at it like all of Geordi's medical data, which is like on display there.
Yeah. Huge violation. Oh, first appearance of a medical tricorder.
Oh, yes.
They have the fun little sensor thing that's inside it. Data gets investigated as well, and...
If you were any more perfect, Data, I'd have to write you up in a Starfleet medical textbook.
I'm already listed in several biomechanical texts, Doctor.
Also, why is Crusher checking out data? Shouldn't Geordi be checking out data?
See, nobody knew what this show was going to be. Did we treat him like Spock? He's an android. What's an android? Oh, it's a biomechanical. Later it's established that he's positronic, right?
Yes.
And that it's unique technology.
And he's got a few little tubes of white goop running through him, but he's no biological components.
Yeah.
Geordi immediately is already showing signs of being affected. And in a blatant disregard of protocol, Crusher lets Riker leave because, yes, of course, we have this... They were on the ship. He got infected with someone. We are in the same room here with him. It clearly made it through the biological filters of the transporter. We're just going to let the first officer walk right out of sick bay, perhaps carrying whatever it was that...
As right as you are, I hate to use... I think the implication here is that Riker has already been checked first.
Yeah.
And found clear, and then Data, and now finally
Geordi is also being checked and found clear, and yet he's clearly affected by something.
Yes, but no such evidence exists for either Data or Riker. And they do have really important jobs. And this was still early on. They just didn't have quarantine protocols.
Yeah.
They were we used maximum decontamination. What more do you want from us?
Yes. The boots of conclusion jumping are firmly on Riker's feet this episode because he remembers something. Like,
all I have is a vague memory of reading somewhere about someone taking a shower in his or her clothing.
yes, because that's never ever happened at all in any film, TV, other history.
This is like my favorite bit.
Yeah.
This is, look, we have a senior officer who goes, okay, something is niggling at my mind. I don't know it for sure, and I don't actually have time to work it out. So I'm going to admit my sort of flawedness here. But
right.
I think there's something valuable to it. It's valuable enough data for your time to be invested in it. And it's like it's an act of humility and sort of rational concern. Because there's something...
I think it's called delegation.
Yes. Something that Picard hasn't mastered yet in this episode.
No, clearly not, no.
But he goes, there's something.
Yes.
And I have a hunch and I need it rounded out. And it turns out to be valuable.
So, Geordi is in the meantime in sickbay. Crusher goes into her office for a moment. And he gets up from the bed. Crusher comes back and, oh, shock, the pillows are gone. Geordi's missing too.
Oh, wow. And this is a big problem. So she immediately calls, okay, here's some sort of procedure porn.
Right,
Look
no, true. This is the first time she's following it properly. It's like, oh, hey, like Geordi, who clearly is showing signs of being weird, is buggered off.
And it's...
It is very important that we find him.
Oh.
Security team alert. Pick up Luke.
And it's Yar who answers.
Yes.
Like Picard, we have this shot of like Picard and Yar over his shoulder. And it's Yar who answers.
Well, she actually calls out security. She doesn't call Picard. She calls to security. LaForge just left sickbay.
Yep. Yeah. And then after that, she addresses...
Captain, anything further?
Affirmative. Make it a ship-wide search.
Yeah, she's like, make it a little bit more, step it up a bit more. Good work, but yeah.
No, but like this is an established procedure.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor is asking for a security response. The captain doesn't respond to that. The security officer's right there. It's her job. And once she's done those steps, then she consults with the captain for anything additional. I love this. Because a lot of the time it's the Picard show.
Good point, yes.
Who, in later seasons, you would go, thank you, doctor, and then nods to Worf, make it so.
Yes. All the decisions go through him, and here it's still a little bit more...
Ooh, I wonder if this is what it's like on a Benzite ship.
Oh.
Like Mendon, who's used to, like, very discrete areas of responsibility, and you don't bother command until you have a complete resolution, because it's your responsibility to get it there.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
So, Geordi has gone to see Wesley, who is showing off his newly built tractor beam.
It's a model of the same kind of tractor beam our ship uses, with a few ideas of my own added.
So that's your science project, huh? Wes, you're really something.
Oh, God. This prop gets a lot of play. This is the legendary prop.
Yes, we've seen it all.
And he has another toy.
Yes.
Take the helm, Mr. Crusher. Set a course for 37, mark 108.
He has a ChatGPT'd.
Yeah. And imagine if it sounds as good as this.
Well, yes.
Yeah, that wouldn't do very well.
Geordi seems to be rather proud of him.
Yeah. He's been very, very supportive.
Helpful and encouraging.
He says...
Wes, you're really something.
Which is a little bit creepy. But not as creepy as what the excuse that Wesley gives for having like a voice simulator.
With this, I can pretend he's ordering me to take the Enterprise anywhere.
It's just a little kitty fantasy, like, oh, look, I can pretend the captain is giving me orders to like steer the Enterprise.
Just Beverly, buy your kid some porn magazines. That's clearly what he needs. Like, he's being so wrapped up in this. Like, he's a young man, sort of budding in his prime. He clearly wants to explore some things. He needs fantasies.
Right. No, I think it's like just the thing that Beverly has forgotten to do is just like give him his weekly workahol antidote. Because like that's not supposed to be working on. Like, it's everywhere on the ship. So.
Yeah, you're supposed to inoculate the kids.
The kids are supposed to.
They pump it in the atmosphere, but the kids are not supposed to be like
exactly.
This. Look at Alexander. He takes double doses. Looking at the state of him.
Yes.
Good grief.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because if you didn't say that, I was going to have to chime in and say it too. Yes, I love being on the same page with it. Kids should not be on workahol, especially little Wonder kids like Wesley. No, he does not need workahol. He needs, like, chill. Like, he needs weed. He needs to calm down a little bit.
Here's a bit of an aside. A while back, I talked about how my husband got the talk from his mother in a very limited fashion, which came down to basically, like, if you ever read a porn story that's about someone being forced into a sexual act that they don't want, and then they wind up enjoying it, that's bullshit. And that was like the only thing that he ever said. That was really great. Mm-hmm. My dad had this other approach where my parents were divorced, and like sometimes my brother and I would stay at my dad's, and when I was reaching a particular age, I think he made it possible for me to find some of his old, like, 1970s, like, Thorgal and Druna.
Right,
magazines. Animated. Sorry, not animated. What's it called? Graphic novels.
Right. Oh, okay.
Bare-chested people and really voluptuous.
Right, yes.
And very sexy, but also, like, very heavily stylized. Mm-hmm. And I've later learned that that's a sort of a common bit of advice for, like, providing young people who are exploring their sexuality with useful tools for that, and that's using, like, drawn and graphic material, really encouraging that.
Puts a little barrier between the reality and the emotions and the thoughts.
Yes, exactly. And it stimulates your own imagination, which is where it should be happening, rather than because if your fantasies are about real people, then there's an aspect of control that you have over fantasies, which is fine, but you shouldn't want that about real people. Who you should want them to have individual agency.
Very good point. Yes.
So I think his little jerk-off toy, if he wants to jerk off to the captain's voice, that's totally his business.
But it shouldn't. Yeah, but it shouldn't really be real people. Yeah.
I don't think that's a wise thing for a young person to imprint on this early in their life. I wonder if that's been edited out.
We'll see. Yes. We'll see. Maybe just certain words have been beeped out. We'll never know. Well, we'll never.
Here, listen to this quote. Georgie says,
"I think the captain's lucky you're on his side."
Well, he's getting his little "I want" scene, which is basically he wants to be a real boy and see, like, with human eyes.
Yeah.
Unlike Mr. Cavill, who wants to see X-rays and.
Oh, sick Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to taste dark matter and not with these.
Not these with, like, primitive
gelatinous cow eyes.
Exactly.
An amazing sort of screed of an artificially created humanoid who hates his creators for giving him a human body instead of, a more robust. Why do I have this skin which so easily cuts? Metal would be nice.
Yeah.
Lieutenant, you're in the observation lounge. Send a team here now. Medical's been worried about you.
Help me.
There's an interesting interaction where first she treats him like a security officer,
and
then he asks for her help, and she says, "Geordie, you're right. Help is more important. How can I help you?" Which, of course, we only got like a stunted part of the first season with Tasha Yar, but this is a really interesting interaction. And she wants to help him, and it's something that she can't. She can't give an unsighted person sight.
No, but she can, like, be there for him, and we'll talk about it. But let's get you to sickbay right now.
And even affirms that.
But you already see better than I can.
I see more. But more isn't better.
And after that, Data and Riker, thank you. Oh, couldn't think of his name. Are again poring over the text, and
they've got the green light in their face.
Very
it's really
strongly.
Cool.
Yeah, it looks especially effective on Data because it was pale makeup, of course.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yes, Riker remembers where it was. Like, oh yes, it was a treaty about old ships named the Enterprise, and that was a weird little thing. So with that information, Data has it narrowed down almost instantly.
They get there in a really organic way, because there's another sort of problem in communication between Riker and Data. And because he says,
"It's like looking for a needle in a haystack."
Which Data questions why anyone would do that. And immediately he says,
"Correction, Data. I should have said proverbial needle in the haystack."
Right. Because in 1987, nobody would know of the existence of something called the Urban Dictionary, which Data is immediately... which your Data would have immediately downloaded in its entirety and be completely... Yeah,
you'd think so. I wonder how Data's education was. Like, if he hasn't dealt with humans not prefacing or not, like, categorizing their information, because he needs them to say, it's the proverbial this.
Right, yes.
Maybe he was on a Vulcan ship. Maybe that provided kind of... Oh, another bit of fun trivia. This is the very first episode without a Vulcan in it in all of Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
Every original series, animated series...
There's always been a Vulcan in it. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Encounter at Farpoint, no Vulcans this time around.
Wow. Yes, I mean, and not just is are they on point, Riker is so confident in it that he even announces that they have the cure before Data finds it. It's like basically apparent behavior, medical cross-references, and then Riker immediately goes to, I believe we have the answer to what happened over there, Captain.
At least he has an explanation.
No, true.
I'm going to pass the boots of conclusion jumping from Riker now onto Picard.
Yeah.
Who decides that, okay, well, based on this information, before we've even finished reading the page, he calls Dr. Crusher and tells her,
You can relax, Doctor. The answer to all of this is feeding into your medical bags right now, including a cure.
Yes.
And she asks,
Are you certain, Captain?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
what
true.
the Absolutely. Like, there's even a glance from Data.
Oh, yes. Data's like, you sure?
And it doesn't come back because, how can you be sure of this? Like, yes, there's a passing resemblance, but you've just, good grief.
Next on the infected list is Tasha, because she has been touching. It seems to pass through touch. So,
Yes.
Unless
That's the implication.
Yeah, because she's been touching Geordi while he was lamenting about his vision,
Yeah.
and now she is in Deanna's quarters, and she's just helping herself to Deanna's wardrobe, who doesn't seem to be particularly bothered. I love Deanna's hairpiece, by the way. That like,
Oh, yes. She's got it all sort of trussed up in that. Oh, what would you call it? It's sort of like a temple. Almost.
I don't know. It's not a diadem. It's because it's more of a
and
wrap
she's got like
around.
a wreath
yeah.
around it. Like,
yeah,
it's beautiful.
It is very.
I don't know
much
the
so.
terminology.
It looks very fancy. It really suits her.
Oh, and Tasha Yar thinks so as well.
Mm-hmm.
You always wear such beautiful clothes off duty. And your hair always looks so nice.
And she asked for advice that she's sort of ganked from Deanna's wardrobe.
Yeah.
And I think Deanna gives a really good response. She says,
It's not for you.
No.
Because she knows Tasha.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Like,
this is not,
based on how we know each other, that's not actually something that you want.
And as soon as Tasha lifts her heels, she calls in and goes like, yeah, I think we got another one.
Yep. She's wise, of course, not to try and interact with someone who's potentially infected with something that isn't understood. And just like with Geordi, they talk about, like, was she violent? No. And it's not like an infection. And she goes,
Yes, sir. It's more like an intoxication.
Yes, here we go. Yeah.
But whatever it is, she's got it. So shut up. Like, it's a distinction without a difference.
Okay, Crusher is starting to get worried because she comes into sick bay where Wesley is toying with his little tractor beam. Like, look what I can do now.
And he's jerking something around the room with his little jerking toy.
There's something happening on this ship. Just to be safe, I'd like you to stay in our quarters until it's solved.
Sure, Mom, sure.
Because you are my precious child. You are my precious child.
Okay. But you could be stunting my emotional growth.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know how you'd be able to tell whether a teenage boy was, like, acting weird based on just a few of these statements. Like, you don't know what kind of, what they've most recently read or who they've talked to or what mood they're in.
Clearly, I mean, like a comment like, oh, you could be stunting my emotional growth is clearly something that they, got picked up from some sort of parenting text that mom left lying around, I guess.
Oh, God, yes. She's a working woman. She's trying her best.
Things are getting hot and heavy because people in the corridors are openly flirting with each other.
Oh, yeah.
Making out. We see another lady in the background in a very short skirt, you know? That's like
Was she wearing one of the skants?
I don't think so. It's very short. This is more like, original series. Like you see that shot when Yar is walking through the corridor and the science officer comes walking up. In the background, there's a gold uniformed redhead lady. I mean, I assume it's a lady, but the 1870s. Sorry,
No,
1870s,
you're right.
78.
So, standing with the two sort of Adonises and sort of flirting up against them, and like
she's got like
boots on.
high boots, a very short skirt.
Yeah, with a gold trim.
Yeah, exactly. The one that Dax wore so very well much later.
Oh, yes. I now see who you mean. And I think that is the scant.
Okay. It seems very short for a scant, because I thought the scant was more down towards the knees.
Well, it's like half.
And this is literally barely over the buttocks.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought the scant was longer, but no. Anyway,
there are other variants, but I think this earlier on we'd also seen a few male presenting officers wear them.
I thought it was longer there, but yeah, who knows?
Maybe it was just particularly hung, and the sensors required. No, the hem needs to be lower. No, we can still just see the tip.
Belt.
Just see the tip.
Jockstrap.
You don't wear a jockstrap under a skirt. You gotta let the breeze fly free over your legs.
It's not the Highlands, man.
Yeah, are you two Scotsmen?
So there's a little scene setting the stage for a time constraint, which needs to be happening, because otherwise it wouldn't be exciting enough.
Captain, another 41 minutes will see the information from the Tsiolkovsky downloaded to us.
This has the distinction of having a dedication plaque in Cyrillic.
Mm-hmm.
It's named after a Russian person. Chief, can you tell us who Mr. Tsiolkovsky was?
Yes, so Konstantin Edovich Tsiolkovsky was a Russian rocket scientist who really pioneered astronautics. He was born in 1857 and died in 1935. He has multiple awards named after him in Russia, from the Federal Space Agency to the USSR Cosmonautics Federation, the USSR Academy of Sciences. He was really a pioneer for space travel, and he was a really big proponent of the idea of human spaceflight.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the only dedication plaque that's in like dark color on a light background and in a language other than English.
Yeah, who knows?
Cool at the time.
Wesley uses his little soundboard to get first rid of the chief engineer.
Yes.
And then of Shimoda to get him out of engineering, because there's nobody else here except the 4 other people who are walking around in the background.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, I guess he's talking about like there are stations that have to be crewed,
right?
And he says, "Well, I can look after this.
Yeah, I know everything here."
Touches Shimoda, who
gets infected. Yeah,
Shimoda is a character who does not occur in Star Trek very much at all, but is mostly famous from the Greatest Generation podcast.
Yes,
where he became the origin of what's known as the Drunk Shimoda. It's their version of the MVP, the person who had the most fun on this episode, because in this episode, it's definitely Shimoda.
He's sitting there, later on playing with the isolinear chips.
He's just having so much fun.
We get a shot of the chief engineer who arrives on the bridge where she reports in. Picard's like, "I didn't ask you here," and it suddenly turns out that Wesley has locked out engineering.
Yeah, because we hear more of Picard's voice.
Attention, all decks, all divisions.
Just a second, Pip. Hey, beloved pod kitty, now is not fighty time. No, please. You know what's going to happen. We're going to put you behind Wesley's little jerk-off force field.
Ooh, I think you're confusing the voice box with the force transporter field.
It's one package.
No, it's not. They're really 2 different things, wasn't it?
Yes, but he showed them in. It was a single show and tell. So
I don't know whose package you're obsessed with. But yes, he's basically got the force field blocked out, and Shimoda swears to be faithful to Captain Crusher.
Everybody's swearing fealty. Like the other people in the engineering also like, yeah, this is totally groovy when he declares that.
And henceforth, a dessert course shall precede and follow every meal, including breakfast.
Especially breakfast.
How is that anyone's dream?
I don't know. I guess it's what the writers think that 14-year-old kids want,
Yeah.
It's just whatever.
I want sugar, fried in butter.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No, you are a growing young person. You do need bunches of calories.
The mood is definitely spreading throughout the ship, because there was apparently a young lady from Venus who had remarkable physical qualities. Enough for the captain to not want to remark on them.
Data's limerick was written by David Gerald, found in his book series, The War Against the Chitaur. So finally we get to find out about it. But it does sound a bit like, Aboard the Good Ship Venus.
Right, yes.
Right, you know that folk song?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Aboard the Good Ship Venus, you really should have seen us, with a figurehead like a whore in bed and a mast of a phallic genus.
So yes, then we get the famous scene,
Oh, wow, yeah, because Picard calls for Lieutenant Yar to seize back control of the ship, but she's not on duty.
In her quarters. So Data gets sent to go check her out, and she confesses to him that all she wants is a little bit of tenderness.
Yeah, she talks about her extremely traumatic upbringing.
Yeah.
That she was abandoned at the age of 5, yet somehow survived and
managed to escape at 15.
On the one hand, I feel like I've always felt like the writers didn't really have enough insight into this kind of traumatic experience to justify how like her world was written. Like there were rape gangs. She was on her own since she was 5.
Yeah.
It sort of feels like there was a writer's room who were like, what if she was on her own since she was 15? Oh, that's terrible. But what if it was 10? Oh, that's probably even worse. Oh, what if it's 5? And just kept dialing it down.
See how far we can get away with, yeah.
without true understanding. But of course, there are people for whom this is
There was
real.
probably some sort of Fagin character involved at some point,
Ooh, interesting. Not that we ever learned. It was her and her sister.
Yeah. But from 5 onwards, yeah, who knows?
From you, Data, you are fully functional, aren't you?
Of course, but
How fully?
in every way, of course. I am programmed in multiple techniques. A broad variety of pleasuring.
I love that shot next when Data arrives on the bridge again, where he's leaning up against the door with this like, hey, look.
It's that Hollywood trope of "I just got lucky" giddiness that people have. Like, bless him if that's the truth. But also, he's just been infected with polywater.
Yes.
And that's also kind of why he's a little bit giddy.
The cure from the old Enterprise doesn't work because they tried on Geordi and he, no.
And we're only 32 minutes into the episode.
Is that only 32 minutes into the episode?
Oh, thereabouts. Like it's pretty early on because the real peril.
Well, we're on page 13 of 18 of the Jeeves, so it's.
Oh, hey, let's do a quick recap of everyone who's been infected. Started off with Geordi.
Yeah.
He wants to be able to see with human eyes.
Yeah.
Moved on to Tasha Yar.
Yeah.
And she wants some gentleness and pleasure.
Yes.
Which are maybe things that she's denied herself as the
yeah.
we know her as a professional woman, as kind of a workaholic. And
not that kind of professional woman.
Come on.
Sorry. Cheap shot.
But that may be like she's used her work to overcome her her emotions, but so she hasn't like developed ways to sort of satisfy her own personal desires and needs.
Well, in all honesty, at this point, anybody could be infected because we see that when she's walking down the corridor and everybody is like schmoozing and finagling and like everybody in engineering is being infected now.
So Wesley's been taken seriously and he wants to be, or Wesley's been infected and he wants to be taken seriously. He wants to basically be a Mary Sue.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
He wants to be lauded and given control of the ship, which,
Yeah, he wants to be a Starfleet officer.
Yeah, and in fact, better than the captain and seen by everyone in such a way.
Yeah.
What does Data want?
Oh.
What does his behavior tell us?
He wants to be a real boy.
Is that what we get from his behavior and motivations in this episode?
Oh. I don't know. There's I don't think that's really explored, to be honest.
Which is interesting. He doesn't really get an I want arc.
No, he doesn't. Absolutely true.
Shimoda just wants to play and have fun, which makes sense for a jumpsuit wearing engineer. I just want to build things.
Yep.
It's no secret there. Like who else do we get?
Picard wants Crusher, I guess.
That's assuming that he's even infected, though.
Yeah, as well.
Because Beverly certainly wants him.
Yes.
She's infected, I think, at this point. Mm-hmm. Or starting to feel
No, she gets infected by Riker later because she mentions that, like...
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
You brought Deanna in.
Yes, she's infected
Then you
with
touched her. Oh, God, and you touched me.
And Riker just has tremendous resistance because he doesn't get to the point where he wants.
He's like probably had a few drinks as well. I mean, Picard has that French upbringing, but Riker's been all over the parties. And
yeah, that's right. Like there's a stereotype of French as big wine drinkers. Well, wine goes with a meal.
Yeah,
and like just drinking recreationally outside of meals is not very common.
No,
in
they
France
drink with
or
lunch,
Italy.
but yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You have a glass of wine with a meal. Yeah. That doesn't get you blottoed.
No, absolutely not. Another person who has not been to very many frat parties at Starfleet Academy is Deanna. Because she's like when everybody started to get a little bit loopy, she's like, I've never felt this before in humans. It's like,
oh, yeah.
Clearly you haven't been around.
Yeah, what does she want?
Oh.
Because who infects her?
Oh, she got infected by Yar, I think.
Did they touch?
Yeah. So she hands over when she hands the clothes back. So.
Oh, you hear the hiss.
I don't remember if we hear the hiss, but that would seem to be the most logical conclusion. So the star is starting its final collapse, and
yes,
we are now minutes away from disaster, and Wesley is still blocking off engineering. Riker and the chief officer. What is it called? Chief engineer? Yes, chief engineer.
Yes, her name is McDougal, her one and only appearance, because in the first season they went through a bunch of chief engineers.
Because they didn't know yet that Georgia was going to be that, I guess.
He was just, I think he was the helmsperson or the con officer at this point.
Or
in the same way that Worf didn't have
or even security. It's kind of unclear what he is at this point, yes.
Yeah, Worf, I think he's operations.
Yeah.
He's in a red uniform.
Yeah. Both of them are.
Yeah.
I mean...
Wesley has hooked up some kind of tractor beam to the ship's power. He has it aimed at the door. And we can't get past to get to the computer.
Now, there's an interesting discussion in how Picard tries to talk Wesley down.
He is. I think it's quite an interesting tone that he manages to strike. It's like he's trying to not sound like he's talking to a child, while in fact talking to a child.
Yes.
And in a way that one does to a child, but trying to...
Because he's aware of his own inadequacies. He doesn't like children. He doesn't like interacting with Wesley, but he sort of has to. So he's trying to be professional. But Wesley's actually quite clever, because he tries to convince this drunk kid, like, hey, you have to give me back the
control of my ship,
the keys to the thresher, please, because I'm in control of my ship. And Wesley points out,
but sir, you don't do it yourself. You give the orders, but somebody else does it. What's wrong with giving me the orders to do it?
And eventually he falls into that trap of like actually articulating what needs to be done right now. And Wesley immediately goes like, right on, sir, coming right up. And without relinquishing any control, he starts working on getting the Tchaikovsky. I keep wanting to say Tchaikovsky, but I know it's not. Tchaikovsky, yes.
It's not a ch. It's
no.
Captain, tractor beam. We just locked onto the Tchaikovsky.
This is where Picard and Beverly have a interesting little exchange in the captain's quarters. So Crusher comes walking out of the turbolift onto the bridge, immediately disappears into Picard's office. Like, a word, please, in your quarters.
It's a private matter.
Yes.
And it's urgent.
And they're like two fucking teenagers.
Yeah, they're so bad at this. Oh my God. So she's right up on him, and he's doing this stoic thing.
I'm a woman. I haven't had the comfort of a husband. A man.
Knock now, Doctor. They can hear us. They're waiting for us. They're listening in on us. Like they know we're up to something if we do this right now. So.
I think there's also this point where she goes up to him and she can feel like her boobs pressing into his rock hard nipples and going.
She's undoing her uniform, like trying to expose some cleavage. Yes.
Yeah, I just noticed that for the first time. That's a great look.
It is.
You can sort of turn it straight into a V, like the Strange New Worlds uniforms have. Sort of have that. Like they do zip open and close to a certain degree, so people can choose. Like how much collar they want to show, how much... I'm a 2-button gentleman where I'm wearing button-ups. I like a bit of ventilation.
So the star starts its collapse, and a huge chunk of star has broken off as coming right at them. It's coming right at us.
Yep. And as was established previously, they can easily outrun it, but then they do need control over those dinky little engines, right? You just sort of need that.
Unfortunately, although they have managed to get control back over the little... engineering quarter where Wesley had holed himself up, Shimoda's pulled out all the isolinear chips and the ship is still controlless.
The idea that you can just do that
makes little sense, I guess.
I mean, why would you design it? On the other hand, hey, once you're in the server rack and you have the door open, you can just yank out blades and blades and blades and blades.
I mean, this is just like whatever. It's whatever the plot requires. And Data gets sent down to do another very famous scene of Data, like, quickly, very rapidly sitting all the isolinear chips back, but it's not fast enough.
Yeah. There's also very little difference. Eventually a cure is developed and people start getting hypersprayed, but like Data doesn't really change at all from the moment where he's playing this game of putting them back in the right order. No. Beautifully shot, by the way, because it's like accelerated, but clearly also reversed.
Oh, he's pulling them out instead of shooting. Okay,
because otherwise you wouldn't get that kind of precision. Imagine trying to slot in 400 USB plugs.
If we just had 1 minute more, sir.
Oh, then they use the Tchaikovsky for that. They basically push off with the tractor beam. So this is interesting. Okay, like I've got one or two more little quips of little gripes about this, of the technology in this episode.
Because I actually wanted to ask you about it, because the technology specifically that Wesley's working on
seems to have developed that, like, tractor beams can now also be used to push. But I'm pretty sure they already could do that.
Oh, there was an original series episode, but at this point that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, so
and they weren't counting.
It seems to me very useless to have like a tractor beam which can only pull. It doesn't make it very easy to control things with.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a magical device that could pull things but not push them, would you just like not use it, or would you just still
Okay, but like, hang on. Like, it's very well established canon that tractor beams can not just pull things straight towards the tractor beam.
Yeah, it is now.
Yeah.
But this was 1987.
Okay.
Like, at this time, let's do the math. Chief, at this point, how many hours of Star Trek had there been when this episode aired?
Okay, good point, yes.
So it really just kind of depends on rounding, but looks like around 85.9 or basically 86 hours of Star Trek if we also include the pilot and all the movies, the animated series. Really, it's about 86 hours of Star Trek.
We're in the region of 90s, right?
Right.
And since then, how many episodes have there been? Or how many hours have there been?
Yeah, it's quite a few more,
Including the movies, it's close to, like, this was the first 10%
right.
of Star Trek that we're that they knew about. But it's a fair point. But then probably your other criticism, I imagine, is like this is all being figured out by a 14-year-old kid.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, that's that the fact that we have a boy genius on board is well established.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm actually more the other thing that I'm concerned about is like that's a very solid piece of star. Stars usually come in chunks.
It's a brown or a white one.
Not yet.
How solid
Not yet.
are
It
they?
isn't. It's still collapsing. There's like what they blow off is gaseous matter, not big chunks of stuff.
There's a bit where Worf was trying to like call attention to Picard, like,
Captain, getting unusual readings now from the dwarf star.
Stand by on that for a moment.
and Picard says, "No, actually, put a pin on that for now.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with one other crisis." This is one of those examples of him being really bad at delegating. Because the next update that he gets is,
Sir, the star is beginning to collapse.
Oh, okay. Well, then it does indeed overtake other things in priority.
We do get we get to see where his priorities are. Speaking of priorities, because like he wanders into like sickbay again, and he has another lovely flirty scene with Beverly, who is like seductively sprayed herself across her desk.
Oh my
as
God!
she talks
Yeah.
to him. It's like,
Beverly,
Yes, Jean-Luc.
you will address me as captain.
Oh yeah.
What was I doing? Oh yes, we were like, I had a cure. Like, and I was going to test it on Geordie.
And it's kind of cool because he sort of goes, oh yes, that's reasonable because I said Beverly and then you of course called me Jean-Luc. That's
Yes.
reasonable. There's probably some version of this where the writers weren't bothered by Gene Roddenberry so much and the actors had more grasp of their characters that makes it really interesting because like afterward when they both get cured, they're also kind of flirty with each other, but in a very productive way.
Right.
Like
Maybe they discovered something here that.
Thanks for that, Bev.
Which is going to be a long-running thing between the two of them.
Will they or won't they?
Yeah, a little bit of that.
No.
So yes, the Tchaikovsky gets sacrificed against the star fragment just to buy them enough time so that Data can vanish its ships, and the ship zooms away on off.
And all's well that ends well. Everyone gets zapped with the cure, including Riker, who, I mean, he's only suffered the physical effects, really.
Pretty much, yes. He's
The
the one who's
sweating and
been
the
less. Yeah, he's the
incapacitation.
one who's been least affected by it.
Okay, I wonder if like he doesn't get an I want thing because he's already like integrated his desires so well.
We already know that Riker has a consent fetish, so this would be.
That's the greatest generation speaking. We don't retread them. They've blazed a trail, and that's really, really awesome. But
I think it's good headcanon, though. It's like it's gone way past the greatest generation at this point. That's.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like everyone gets cured, and there's the walk of shame that our chief referenced when Data and Yar cross paths on the bridge.
Yes.
And she turns to him, and it's really uncool.
Data, I'm only going to tell you this just once. It never happened.
That
Which
really kind of sucks.
Right, because the Data went like, hang on, that's not right. It did happen.
Yeah. How's he supposed to integrate that? Like, this is worthy of a conversation. It's something that you both did. In fact, like Yar was in an inebriated state and she took advantage of someone else and she passed that inner inebriation onto him. Like, they probably had a really great time that they might not ever want to do again, but it's something that you do have to talk about.
Oh yes, absolutely.
But
it's very unprofessional to keep that hanging like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to go, no, it's not professional, they're friends. No, of course not. They're just colleagues. They've known each other for a week.
Yeah.
And now also biblically.
Yeah. And off we go. Like, end of the episode, Warp 3, engage heading mark number, mark 37.
And the last wisdom we get from Picard is...
I put it to you all. I think we shall end up with a fine crew. if we avoid temptation.
What the fuck does that mean?
I can resist everything except temptation.
Oh, was it like a prayer? Lord, give me the strength to resist temptation, but not yet, my lord, not yet.
Or from Zootopia, Weasels and Lion. They offered me the one thing I can't refuse. Money. Speaking of that, like, I noticed that they had the ta-ta-ta.
Oh, yes.
Soundbite quite a few times in there. Yeah.
Like, every time they went to commercial break, it was a dun-dun-dun. And someone staring into the camera
They
like,
were really laying it on thick.
concern.
Yes.
So, who was your
So fucking cool.
MVP? Who do you think was so fucking cool?
I think that would have gone to the acting, specifically by Stewart, Wheaton, and Spiner, because they all both got to do their fantastic faces. Like Spiner, like when he gets drawn into Yar's cabin,
her boudoir,
like she's just like, ooh. And especially when he comes out of the turbo lift, and Wheaton, when he's like, he's doing the little bubbly Wesley thing when he's like talking to the captain and trying to get the captain to give him an order, because that's what he's trying to do. He just wants the captain to give him an order to go do something.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's fascinating watching this from a perspective where I remember seeing this for the first time and thinking how annoying Wesley was, and a lot of that was honestly envy. Right.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
I wanted to be. That was my little fantasy when I was a young man. But seeing this, like, Will Wheaton, how old was he at this time? Like, he was
not entirely sure.
He was 18 at most,
probably
right?
Not even that. No.
And he did a fantastically nuanced performance because he really wasn't that annoying. He never was crazy.
Oh no, not at all. So it's interesting. He actually rewatched this episode for AOL TV at some point, and summed it up as saying, whether it was the worst episode ever or not probably rested upon the viewer's expectations. Trekkies who were looking for reasons to hate the next generation found plenty, where viewers who were willing to watch it with an open mind saw flashes of things they came to love. So I think he's got a very good point there. Yes.
Yeah. And if we go back to our recommendation, yeah, the sheer sort of joy and exuberance of retreading like an episode, and also we don't know that original series episodes. Like,
no.
All I know is like slicked up George Takei waving his sword around. Like, woo, yeah.
Yes. it's a good shot. It's an
This joy of like uncovering the real motivations of these characters, so we can actually appreciate them, because after this we're going to see them closed off again.
So who do you have for MVP?
Yeah, I should have been thinking about that while I was talking.
I was thinking about that a lot while we were having technical difficulties at the beginning, so I, for a change, came prepared.
Yeah, excellent. I was stuck between like 5 things that I couldn't do for various reasons, which I was hoping to achieve. Here's what I'm going through. Writing, it's a wild one, right? It's a difficult time to write this early in a series. Like, not particularly. I like that it was a big swing. I can't do Shimoda, even though
I see what you mean.
I totally would, but like Greatest Generation took that. You know what? Mine's going to go to...
Well, hello, Enterprise. I hope you have a lot of pretty boys on board, because I'm willing and waiting.
Right? Like...
Captain Gigarotta of the USS...
Tsiolkovsky, yeah. And just the daring of having a Starfleet ship address a colleague with,
yes.
Well, hello there. And everybody's straight-faced in that scene.
Yes. I hope you have a lot of pretty boys, because I've already had all the ones that I had on my ship.
Now, what about your...
Captain's log, supplemental.
Well, so after they have the transporter set to maximum decontamination, there's like a scene where they basically get sent off to the special breakfast buffet, where they have like lots of Yakult and other probiotic foods and everything.
To repopulate their intestinal
flora has been completely wiped clean by the biological filters of the...
And they have some spray on skin, because they've also been like 2 centimeters of exfoliation. Whoa.
That sounds decidedly unpleasant, like from being run through the transporter with everything, like the biofilters turned up to maximum. It's like, even if it looks odd, then it's not coming through.
Okay.
It seems like more like a flock scene, actually, where just like he's going through his menagerie and going like, oh yes, have a little bit of this and like lick that one.
And let this one, like, you put one of these on each of your fingers. I know it feels weird, but you'll dig it. You'll dig it eventually. Ooh, yeah. Mine's going to be what Riker did once he started coming down. All the sort of huge amount of sex that he had with everyone that was there.
Like banging his way across the lower decks.
Yeah. But just like everybody who came up to him going, oh, hello, boys, I would like some sex at you, please. And he goes,
take a number.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I'm still on these three maximum. I promise, I'll get there. Keep it wet. I'll be right there. So by the time that we see him again, sitting in the same chair, like he's just f***ed out.
A little bit wide-legged. It's like, a little ice pack on his thighs. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a bag of frozen peas on his drive.
All right, let's find out what we're going to do
next time on an all-new episode of Star Trek.
Because as always, our chief engineer has reached into the giant hat to pick a recommendation from one of our listeners. This time, thank you, Traci, for sending in that recommendation. And it's so nice. Anytime that we hear from someone that we don't know, someone that's listened, we absolutely delight in that. And we want to hear from you as well. You can go to joyoftrek.com/links. You'll find a bunch of links to like our socials, but also like the form where you can send in your own recommendation. If the chief winds up picking it, he might invite you to record it if you want to speak to us in your own voice. If you don't, also totally fine. But yeah, just like Traci did, we want to hear what you loved more than anyone and why. Because they're beautiful viewpoints. So let's find out what we're warping into next week based on these clues.
Well, Ambassador, I'd say we got an unexpected guest.
Oh, it's the Ferrero Rocher
Wait,
episode.
What? You got it from that?
It's the Ferrero Rocher episode.
I'm dealing with the thing that you got it that fast.
No,
I'm going to deal with the Ferrero Rocher episode next. What is the Ferrero Rocher episode?
I'm just written like Ambassador.
Oh, because Ambassador is in it, and that was a commercial. Okay, sometimes.
I thought Klingons didn't get nauseated. You have a redundant stomach.
Huh, okay.
So Worf most likely, but that means...
Sounds like Worf,
TNG or DS9.
Yes.
Who designed this ship, anyway?
It's not Scotty, is it?
Oh, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, we've got a few more.
I may never put my hand on my hips again.
I may never put my hand on... Who does that? Is that Riker?
I don't think it, like, okay, just metagaming it a little bit. I doubt we're getting 2 TNG episodes in a row.
Why not?
So, I don't know, just metagaming, you know? That's
They're hugely overrepresented
I know,
the
but
Berman
still.
era. And in a truly sort of random distribution.
I
you
know,
expect clustering.
yet I'm still metagaming it.
Okay,
so
fine.
probably a DS9.
These last two were longer.
The heating array overloaded. It incinerated a 12-kilo pot roast and all the food replicators went offline.
12-kilo pot roast when the food replicators went online.
How are we not getting... We're not even anywhere close. Is it doing anything for you?
I mean, maybe Voyager?
Voyager?
I mean, B'Elanna is a half Klingon.
Yeah, but so she would only have half a redundant stomach.
Doesn't work like that.
Doesn't it?
But so, I mean...
Got one more clue.
Yeah?
As for the larger versions of the virus, what I have termed the macrovirus, I would suggest a fly swatter.
Oh!
Yeah.
Macrocosm. It's Voyager. You're
It
right.
is Voyager. You're right. Yes.
Oh my God! It's gonna be Janeway doing a Sigourney Weaver with her sleeveless tank. It's gonna be all greasy. It's gonna be amazing because this is.
I think that last one may have done it, but the episode is Voyager Season 3, Episode 12.
Macrocosm. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'll be looking forward to that.
Oh, I can't wait. We'll see you all next time. But in the meantime,
I'm leaving Starfleet.
Energize!
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode with your friends Kay and Kaki, production and editing by our chief engineer Greg, and music by Fox Amor. Join us next time for Voyager 312 Macrocosm. Visit joyoftrek.com/links to send us your recommendations, support us on Patreon, or to find us on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to The Joy of Trek, and we'll see you out there.